here.
Recording progress.
Okay, this is.
It looks like UCF is muted. I'll send him a text message and see if I can't get him to turn it on.
Thanks, Gary. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. I'm gonna head out. Well, actually, I'm gonna.
I've got
finish my tea.
I've got no audio at this point.
Yeah, and you're not the only one having trouble with audio.
Spiritual traditions, and where all are welcome to responsibly explore their own connection to the sacred. I'm Philip Strickland, and I'll be your worship associate for today. I'm once again joined by the fantastic Jason Pesch, who will be your worship leader. Thank you to our accompanist, Megan Smith, our song leader, Karen Baggett, and Barb Thomas and Dan Phillips, who are doing the AV and Zoom magic today. And as for those of you in the congregation, if you're visiting us for the first or second time today, will you please raise your hand so that we may welcome you? Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? And mic is turned on.
Would you like to introduce yourself? Anybody?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah, we just have we're a Zoom, so they can hear.
My name's Katie McDonald, and my husband and I just moved to Beaufort about a month ago, so I'm still learning my way around, and I'm a neighbor of Helene. I don't know where she is, but yeah. So anyway, it's just nice to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. Welcome. And we'll pass it over to the Zoom folks.
Okay. Zoom folks.
And the folks on Zoom, we have Brenda, Captain Ron, Gary, John Brobst, Terry Matheson, Kay and Darrell Lynch, Lauren and Sarah Sutherland.
All right, let's wave to them.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us virtually. All right, and here to give us a special announcement for the UCF Goods and Services auction, we have our choir, I think, coming up here, who would like to share a little something with us.
Get up close. Philip's going to hold a microphone for us.
Philip's going to hold the mic.
And this one's going to help a little bit. 1, 2.
Here we come to have some fun. The auction's what we're meeting. It's the most fun It's better than spring cleaning. As church goes on in endless song, expenses are surprising. The auction brings us cash to pay, for paychecks are arising. There's dinners, wines, and works of art, desserts and fun surprises. The 50/50 raffle, and do not forget door prizes. Your house is full of treasure that gathers dust and clutters. It's time to bring it to the church. Unload your stuff on others. Mark will wear his boots of pink. Our Vanna White is Miriam. Helena's silent auction queen. They're all good Unitarians. So bring your friends and family. It's fun and we ain't kidding. You'll be amazed what there will be. How can you keep from bidding?
Thank you very much. All right, in addition to the auction, we're hoping that you can please sign up to sell your stuff at our yard sale, which is on Saturday, May the 17th. You can sell your stuff, donate some of the proceeds to benefit our kids' religious education program, and have some fun. The sign-up sheet is in the social hall and online. Yep, and it's floating around. Now, we center ourselves here in sacred space and let music guide the way.
So, just before I start, I know it says I'm the worship leader on this one, but honestly, I had to go to the emergency room this morning for a kidney stone, and Philip bailed me out, so he should be the worship leader on this one. Just FYI. And he's doing a phenomenal job. Anyway. So our opening words come from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. This is a responsive reading. I invite you to say all your parts, which are in italics. Blessed be you, harsh matter, barren soil, stubborn rock, you who yield only to violence, who force us to work. if we would eat. Blessed be you, perilous matter, violent sea, untamable passion, you who devours. Blessed be you, mighty matter, irresistible march of evolution, reality ever newborn, you who by constantly shattering our mental categories force us to go even further. Blessed be you, universal matter, unimmeasurable time, boundless ether, triple abyss of stars and atoms of generations. You who by overflowing and dissolving our narrow standards of measurement reveal to us the dimensions of God. And now let us speak these words as one. Come, let us worship together. And I would like to say, today we gather on the traditional lands of the Lumbee and Tuscarora peoples, who have stewarded this territory for generations and continue to do so despite ongoing challenges to their sovereignty and heritage. Raleigh, would you please come help us light the chalice? All right. Our chalice lighting words are from Briet Anna McNeil. When the human world feels heavy, take yourself to the homely arms of oak, into the whispers of the ocean, and find the call of bird. Let new languages, new sounds, new meanings fill your bones. Let the beauty of this more than human world settle your frightened heart. Let your wider community show you, strengthen you. Let them tell you stories of the wildness that is seeded from the darkness. And now we light this chalice. Find the white of blackthorn blossom amidst the bare spaces, the gold of celandine and the song of bee. Let dandelion's medicine speak to you of courage, weaving tales of tenacity and re-wilding into your gut. Find the verdant seedlings grown from death, the young elder birthed from a breaking. Watch how the little alchemists, the insects, the fungi, and the worms eat the waste and turn it into gold. You are more than stagnant human in concrete and chaos. You are wild, wise, and ensouled. Let yourself remember. And we also light our peace candle to remind ourselves that peace is a process that requires work, and peace is not merely an absence of conflict, but is the presence of justice, exactly. And now, please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 5. It is Something to Have Wept.
You might want your book for this one. It is something to have wept as we have wept, and something to have done as we have done. It is something to have watched when all have slept, and seen the stars which never see the sun. It is something to have smelled the mystic rose, although it break and leave the thorny roads. It is something to have hungered once as those must hunger who have ate the bread of God. To have known the things that from the weak are furled, the fearful ancient passions strange and
Each week, we make some time and space to be human and celebrate our joys and grieve our sorrows together. Should you wish to share a personal joy or sorrow about a person or persons in your life, there is paper to fill out and place in the basket on the way to the chalice. After our ritual, I will read these personal joys and concerns to the congregation. You may now line up over by the wall and select stones or shells from the basket to represent your joys and concerns and gently place it into the chalice of water. We welcome your joys and sorrows with our stones and water ritual. First, we have some community concerns which are pertinent to today's subject matter. I will pass the mic to Jason to articulate these concerns further.
Second. So a community concern I would like to say, recent studies from the National Institute of Justice suggest that American Indian and Alaska Native women are 2.5 times more likely than the national average to experience certain violent crimes. Some researchers believe the true rate may be closer to 10 times higher due to widespread underreporting and flaws in the Native reporting system. According to the National Crime Information Center, there were 5,712 reports of missing Indigenous women and girls in 2016, yet the Department of Justice's Federal Missing Persons Database only listed 116 cases. In 2018, data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed that among Indigenous females aged 1 to 44, homicide was the 6th leading cause of death. Finally, a 2016 report by the Urban Indian Health Institute found that over 95% of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit cases received no national or international media coverage. And as you know, some of you may not know that in our own state, in Lumberton, a few years back, there are 3 women all in the same time frame who were murdered, and they still have not found the killer. Another woman is missing, and I just wanted to raise this concern. And here in Cedar Point, right down the road, I bring a local concern, a matter involving not just law enforcement, but also sacred land, colonial violence, and the rights of Indigenous people to grieve and remember. Cedar Point has recently become the site of aggressive tourist real estate development. In their rush to build luxury homes and waterfront attractions, developers pushed forward despite the discovery of Indigenous pottery shards, and later, human remains on the site. The area is believed by many to be part of an ancestral burial ground. One of the people who went to the site to pray and honor that space was Jane, a Native woman. She was not there in protest, she was there in ceremony. What followed was not peaceful. On June 23, 2024, Jane and others were confronted by off-duty officer James De La O. Several serious allegations since have come to light. Officer De La O was possibly intoxicated, physically assaulted Jane, and filed a false police report. Jane, the victim, has received no formal support or legal updates since the incident. Other Indigenous advocates were reportedly profiled and intimidated by law enforcement. This reflects a deeper pattern of racial disparity in Carteret County's justice system. As UUs, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we are called to respond when injustice silences the most marginalized. I ask that we as a community witness this moment and consider taking action. One way is to respectfully, please respectfully, contact Carteret County District Attorney Scott Thomas and ask for an independent investigation into Officer De La O's conduct, full victim rights and communication for Jane, and a review of law enforcement's treatment of Indigenous advocates. And this is not about sides, it's about sacredness, justice, and truth. And thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Now, I would like to share a joy with you all. The Martin Luther King Birthday Celebration Committee sent UCF a thank you letter, which I will read here. Dear Unitarian Coastal Fellowship, thank you for the many ways you support the Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Celebration. We celebrate your generous monetary donation as well as the many hands of your church members who prepared the food. We are proud to honor the life and legacy of Dr. King with friends such as you working alongside us. Sincerely, Dr. MLK Jr. Birthday Committee. Now, in light of what Jason shared with you all, and in light of that letter, in that vein, it bears repeating that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Today, we are presented with a surplus of opportunities to pursue this virtue. When each of us lived the revelation that the pursuit of justice is not merely a personal prerogative, but a matter of persistent, genuine, collective effort for the common welfare, our deeds, no matter how humble, will not go unnoticed in such a weary world. And now, I will read out loud your personal concerns and joys. Concerned that we may love NPR and PBS. Funding a little bit shaky right now on those. Please keep Palestinians in your hearts against the ongoing genocide. And a joy, I started a new job this week. Nicole. This community witnesses your joys, your concerns, even the ones not spoken out loud, or those that are slowly forming in your heart. May you know love, may you know peace, and may you be safe. And now it's time for all ages, and today's story comes from the Cherokee tradition, although it has also been attributed to the Muskogee Creek. The story is Grandmother Spider Steals the Sun, as reported by the ethnographer James Mooney in the 1890s. Grandmother Spider Steals the Sun. In the beginning, there was only blackness, and nobody could see anything. People kept bumping into each other and groping blindly. They said, "What this world needs is light." Fox said he knew some people on the other side of the world who had plenty of light, but they were too greedy to share it with the others. Possum said he would be glad to steal a little bit of it. "I have a bushy tail," Possum said. I can hide the light inside all that fur." Then he set out for the other side of the world. There he found the sun hanging on a tree and lighting everything up. He sneaked over to the sun, picked out a tiny piece of light, and stuffed it into his tail. But the light was hot and burned all the fur off. The people discovered his theft and took back the light, and ever since, Possum's tail has been bald. "Let me try," said the buzzard. "I know better than to hide a piece of stolen light in my tail. I'll put it on my head." He flew to the other side of the world, diving straight into the sun, and seized it in his claws. He put it on his head, and it burned his head feathers off. The people grabbed the sun away from him, and ever since then, Buzzard's head has remained bald. Then Grandmother Spider said, "Let me try." First, she made a thick-walled pot out of clay. Next, she spun a web reaching all the way to the other side of the world. She was so small that none of the people there noticed her coming. Quickly, Grandmother Spider snatched up the sun, put it in a bowl of clay, and scrambled back home along one of the strands of her web. Now, her side of the world had light, and everyone rejoiced. Spider-Woman brought not only the sun to the Cherokee, but fire with it. And besides that, she taught the Cherokee people the art of pottery making. The end. And now we will sing our children to their religious education classes with the blessing song. With drums. We invite you into a moment of silence and meditation. Let your breath bring you into meditation, and let music lead you out. All right. Time for another lecture by Dr. Strick. No, I promise it's more of a sermon this time. But for this sermon, I must beg you all for mercy. I must beg for mercy because I know that a good orator is not half as valuable as a good listener. Listeners allow their minds to grasp ideas and, in so doing, feed their imaginations. I must also beg for mercy because I'm going to be doing the unthinkable. I must beg for mercy because I am about to deliver some rather grave news. This world we fight for, this world we live for, this world we die for, has already ended. My points, though they may sound ludicrous at first, are ultimately the concretions of my own mind. For years, this is the gap where I've sought refuge, my niche between rocks and hard places. It's also where I've chosen to lodge the phantoms of my memories, education, emotions, and experiences. I am grateful to have made room for all these things in my life, but it was not without time and effort and blood and sweat and tears and vomit. The margins of this gap could only be widened by the gnashing of teeth, which I have tolerated in the higher hope that if nothing else, I would receive mercy in kind. I ask that you all be merciful in your appraisal of my theses today, because seeing as how I am a white man with no indigenous American ancestry to point to, I do not pretend to speak for indigenous Americans. Rather, my intention is to relate to the best of my ability what I think I have learned from them, both personally and through literature and the humanities. Nor can I tell you directly to decolonize your brains. I am not responsible for your core ideological predilections one way or the other. And I'm sure that by now, most of you are at least vaguely familiar with the plights of the first peoples of the Americas. The more I try to change minds, the more I end up being branded as a naive radical. So I guess that makes me an oxymoron. Which is the best kind of moron. The theme for May is imagination. As such, I can only ask you to imagine the existential absurdity of our post-apocalyptic reality. Think John Lennon and REM, throw them in a blender. Imagine it's the end of the world as we know it. I wonder if you can. And it isn't hard to do. The year is 1492. Europe flirts with Armageddon in a quest to seek the ends of the earth. Christopher Columbus encounters the Taino in the Bahamas. By 1535, an estimated 7 million Taino lost their lives to slavery, disease, and outright murder. For the next 5 centuries or so, this set a precedent for the treatment of indigenous American peoples by American colonists worldwide. And this genocide, taken as a whole, took, according to some estimates, roughly 60 million lives. Not 6 million, not 16 million, 10 million times 6. That doesn't even include the death toll of the Trail of Tears, other acute genocidal events, or the slow violence of structural racism and ethnocentrism. Some scientists hypothesize that this great dying, as they call it, may have even had a literally chilling effect on Earth's climate. An unimaginable hell frozen over with blood as the coolant. 60 million people dead. 60 million imaginations extinguished, ripped from the flesh of the world. My friends, what does that even look like? This, I'm sorry to say, requires little stretch of the imagination, because I can tell you exactly what it looks like. It looks like what's going on in Cedar Point. It looks like highways and cars. It looks like skyscrapers and colonnaded banks, and the pale busts at 6 grandfathers, though you may know it as Mount Rushmore. It sounds like dirt as it backfills a grave. It sounds like the endangered languages from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. It tastes like uranium. It looks like everything we have to show for it, and everything that will never again see the light of day. And yet, there were and are survivors. Now, these survivors must wander in a post-apocalypse met with a weirding and warming world among the uncanny others who wish still to do the dirty work of manifest destiny. I'm reminded of a quote from Timothy Morton's Hyperobjects. This end is precisely not an instant vaporization, but rather a lingering coexistence with strange strangers. And I, stranger among the strange strangers, am among them in the wastes. And so are you. Let's fast forward. The year is 1784. The world has ended yet again. James Watt just invented the steam engine, starting a coal craze which marks humanity's rapacious consumption in the Earth's crust, biosphere be damned. The Anthropocene is made as real as the fossils lurking below, and nourished by their liquid remains. Fast forward again, the year is 1945. For something to happen, it needs to happen twice, but for a story to conclude, it needs a third act. The place is Trinity, New Mexico. Homo sapiens finds a way to break the atom. Later, Hiroshima and Nagasaki melt into the air. Donna Haraway posits that we ought not to call it the Anthropocene at all. Rather, we should view ourselves as living in the Cthulhucene, which is named after the Pimoa Cthulhu spider, which weaves complex, elaborate webs. This is to illustrate the increasing interconnectedness of all life and death on Earth, past and present, human and non-human. You will be forgiven, however, to think that this concept comes from the Lovecraftian Cthulhu, the great old one of eldritch horror. Indeed, much of humankind's behavior has been shown to be downright chthonic, that is to say, concerning the underworld. As a matter of fact, we drill for mortal remains found liquefied underground, and we bring them into the domain of the living from the domain of the departed to do our bidding. All our machinations which rely on fossil fuels are thus akin to necromancy of a sort. You call it driving, I call it raising the dead, potato, potato. Epilogue. The year is 2025. The day is Sunday, May 4th. Everything moves faster and faster and faster. Friction and fire are enough to melt our fragile minds. More genocides, economic crises, inequities predicated on class, caste, gender, sexuality, religion, race, ethnicity. More human atrocities than we can ever fully fathom. Not to mention the natural hazards which humble humankind year after year and are met only with hubris. Ironically, it is this same hubris which places the blame on nature. There are no natural disasters as such. There are only events which disturb our lifestyles. The disasters come from our reactions to these disturbances. The word disaster literally means a bad star. And the oracles of old would interpret the entrails of the firmament and divine them with some significance. I must confess that I am only an oracle of historiography and social fact. These alone are enough to convince me, indeed, that the world has already ended. But after the end of the world, after the so-called end of history, something went terribly wrong. A miracle happened. I stand before you a denizen of the post-apocalypse. Maybe the innocent, just, penitent have already been raptured. And the rest of us are left to roam the earth as fools. Fools we remain until our imaginations stop failing us. For as the bard tells us, jesters do oft prove prophets. I can safely say that none of you here today are fools. Though you may doubt, you are daring enough, imaginative enough, to be a prophet. Ponder this for a while, and you may find the courage. And when you become a prophet, you may have the power to, as Reverend Molly Baskett and Ellen O'Donnell put it, bless this mess. The world may have ended, but the epilogues are still being written. I'll send you off with a message from Stephen Charleston's book, We Survived the End of the World, Lessons from Native America on Apocalypse and Hope. He tells us, Native American nations have endured war, genocide, pandemics, concentration camps, re-education centers, death marches, religious persecution, environmental disaster, language loss, imprisonment, political oppression, sanctioned murder, kidnapping, slavery, sexual abuse, and endemic racism. And yet, sovereign Native nations are still here. They have not only survived, they have grown stronger. The endurance of Native America comes from sources within every culture. Every culture. It is the hope of all humanity. You are a prophet. You have been chosen because you have been born. You are a prophet because you are awake. You are a keeper of revelation, a person with a thought that may create a new world. Do not hide that piece of the sacred tablet, for the time is short. But give it to as many as you can, as often as you can, until the apocalypse becomes a blessing. Thank you. And now, as you're able and willing, please rise and raise your voices for hymn number 143, Not in Vain the Distance Beacons.
Not in vain the distance beacons, forward, forward, let us range. Let the great world spin forever down the ringing grooves of change. Through the shadow of the globe we sweep on into heights. We the heirs of all the ages in the foremost clouds of time. Oh, we see the crescent promise of the Spirit has not set. Ancient founts of inspiration well through all our fancies yet. And we doubt not through the ages one increasing purpose moves. And the thoughts of all are widened with the process of the suns. Yea, we dip into the future far as human eye can see the vision of the world, all the wonder that shall be. Hear the wardrobe thrum no longer, see the battle flags all furled in the parliament of freedom, federation of the world.
Every month, we share the plate with a community organization. Today, we have Jamie Limbaugh, founder and director of the Crystal Coast Cancer Rehab Program, who is here to tell us about the community organization we've selected for May. Is Jamie here today? There she is. Come on up.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. This is my first time here, and I'm pumped. What a great place. This is amazing. I was talking to a member early, and I'll make it brief. Barb said I had to make it brief. I'm quite the talker, so I'll time myself. About how you put in the pamphlets, like, into words, feelings that I'd had in looking for a place like this. I didn't even know it existed, so I'm so thankful that this is here. And we moved here from Savannah, and if anybody's been to Savannah, Carteret County is very different than Savannah, Georgia in terms of a lot of things. Diversity, food, congregations, so thank you for having me here. I'm very blessed to be here. So Crystal Coast Cancer Rehab, I've always felt that I needed to do something. I was here for a purpose. I'm sure we've all driven that way, and I've done a lot of soul searching over my years. And I became a mom, and then I realized, no, I really need to make this into fruition. I had this dream of a place where I could apply my skills of exercise science and dietetics to a group of people that I knew would benefit. And so, like many of us in this room, I was touched by a loss of a family member from cancer. So I'm like, well, what else could be done? And I'm like, well, exercise is always going to help, right? Nutrition's always going to help, but then where can they go? I was like, well, I can do this, right? So with a really good glass of wine and the internet, I created Crystal Coast Cancer Rehab. My accountant was not impressed with this move because now she had a lot more paperwork to do. Because I did what I thought was the hard part, she did the rest for IRS, that 501c3. So the premise of Crystal Coast Cancer Rehab is that at the time of diagnosis, and we only operate with referrals, so we work with all the local hospitals here in Carteret, Craven, Duke, Chapel Hill, and they enroll with us, and while they're going through their cancer treatments, we support their body and their mind and their soul and their energy So the doctors can concentrate on working with the cancer where we treat the whole body. And so through that exercise, we put them through movements, and over 80% of our participants maintain or actually increase their strength, which is huge. And this year we lost, due to a suicide, one of my longest standing employees, so we have also added a scholarship fund, which today's will go towards for mental health, and help with that aspect, because cancer is not easy, right? So I'm just really thankful that you guys are here, and in the light of what you guys do is here as well, and with my main business, Crystal Coast Wellness, is that we are very diverse, and my goal is to have it to where nobody has to pay, because they walk through the door and it doesn't matter what car you drive, where you live, how much money you have in your bank account, cancer affects us all the same. So we really, really instill that in our services. So all of the donations today will go towards our mental health initiative, and it will also help offset all of the costs so that no one has to pay when they come through. So thank you again for having me.
Okay. Please join in blessing this offering with hymn number 402, From You I Receive.
And now we shall extinguish our chalice. Please join me in reading our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now in Español. Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez. And now, please rise and body your spirit for hymn 1009, Meditation on Breathing.
We are going to learn 3 different parts here. The first is the drone. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, now you're good with that, right? Okay, those of you that love the simplicity, you can have that part, no matter where you are in this room. Okay, the next part is the when I breathe alto. try that. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe. One more time. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Okay, if you love that part, that'll be your part. And then we have one more part, which is might need some higher voices. Okay, now let's start with the drone, and then we'll add the middle voices, and then we'll add the high voices. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. In, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe peace. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Last time. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Thank you.
Do you want me to go down there? Okay. All right, cool. All right. And it is UCF tradition to join hands and form anything close to a circle around this whole thing. However, if you prefer not to, that's okay. If moving is not what you need right now, please remain in the center of the circle and we'll surround you with the presence of love. All right. You want to, there, get it there. All right, we all ready? See, are we all interlocked? All right, cool. All right. We got this. All right. Beauty is before me, and beauty is behind me. Above me and below me hovers the beautiful. I am surrounded by it. I am immersed in it. In my youth, I am aware of it. And in old age, I shall walk quietly to the beautiful trail. In beauty, it is begun. In beauty, it is ended. From the Navajo. Go now in peace. job, man.
Thanks.
Thanks for helping. Putting that all together. Helping out a lot, man.
Yeah.
Hey, John, are you there?